It's a Thursday, so welcome back to our Leaders in Customer Loyalty series. Today is the Brand Stories podcast. Thank you for joining us every Thursday. It's great to have you. Some brands build loyalty programs. Others completely rethink what customer loyalty should look like. As consumer expectations continue to evolve, the brands willing to re-examine their approach, benchmark against the best, and modernize their value proposition are the ones positioning themselves for long-term success. Today's conversation explores how one beloved brand is doing exactly that, building on a strong heritage while reimagining their customer loyalty strategy for the future. Joining us today is Jenn McMillen, Vice President of Guest Loyalty and Insights at Nothing Bundt Cakes. How are you doing today, Jenn?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First off, can you give us an introduction to Nothing Bundt Cakes? When and where is the company founded? What do you guys do?
Sure. All right. So, as I've experienced in the year and a half that I've been here, when I say I work for Nothing Bundt Cakes, I either get one of two answers. One is, I love your cakes, or number two is, who do you work for? So, yeah, we are $1 billion bakery company. We specialize in bundt cakes. So the shape is our signature, along with our signature frosting. And we have more than 800 bakeries. We're in 45 states. But we were founded 29 years ago, so we have been around that long. And we had two founders. One had the cake recipe, one had the frosting, and they were friends in Las Vegas. And at some point, someone said, y'all should sell these cakes. And a business was born.
Well, that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I know you know your background. What do you do in your current role on a day-to-day basis? What's that involve?
Sure. So I have been around I've been around loyalty for a long time. So as have you. And remember Blockbuster Awards, right? Way back
Yeah.
in the 90s. All right. So that was the first big program I launched. That was in 1998. I was 27. So I am 54. And so being in the industry that long, the biggest program I think that I was known for up till this point was GameStop Power Up Rewards. So I built that, and I was at GameStop for half a decade, went to Michael's, then started my own company, Incendio. But I joined Nothing Bundt Cakes about a year and a half ago and came to work actually for an old client. And we're based in Dallas. And let's see what else I can tell you about the Bundt. Yeah, I mean, we are a growing company, and what lured
That's
me
awesome.
back to client side was the fact that we are growing so fast, and so it's really fun to be back on the client side, and fun to be back as a program runner.
That's awesome. So when you look at your role in deep history in customer loyalty,
Yeah.
what is the biggest challenge you face on a day-to-day basis?
For me, this is the first time that I have been in a franchise business. And, I had the luxury of, when I was at Michael's and GameStop, that a loyalty initiative was something that I could put on an operational scorecard, measure my teams against, and actually tie to their bonuses. And in a franchise environment, which is what we are, I have no control, over compliance. We do the best we can. We have, a lot of training that goes out and everything, but there's certainly a lot of variation across our system in how loyalty is pitched, how loyalty is used, and how customers perceive it as well.
Absolutely. When you look at the I don't know, do you guys consider yourself retail? Do you consider yourself restaurant? Do you consider yourself CP? And what are you? Because you've got a little bit of everything, right? You have this
Yeah, I mean, I
brand.
asked that question when I was interviewing, and I said, "Are we QSR? I mean, are
Yeah.
we restaurant? Are we retail? We say we're food adjacent, which is no
Okay.
category whatsoever. And but when I benchmark, like I look at companies like Raising Cane's because they do one thing and one thing well, and that is our business model as well.
Okay. So food adjacent.
Food
When you
adjacent,
look
yeah.
at your industry, there's change disruption happening quite often right now in many industries. Customers are changing expectations, millennial,
Yeah.
Gen Z. When you look at the food adjacent industry or the industries you benchmark against, how is your industry changing? How do you see it changing?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you when I got here a year and a half ago, because research is also as part of my responsibilities. I was benchmarking against companies like Crumble. and sprinkles and Tiff's treats and Susie cakes and, very bakery focused concepts. But over the last certainly year and a half, I have started benchmarking against companies that I would call self-treat. So not only am I looking at the cookies and the cupcake people, but I'm also looking at Baskin Robbins and I'm looking at Dunkin' and I'm looking at Dutch Bros. And, anybody like when you need a little pick me up, where do we fall? And so, yeah, so it's definitely become much more of a self-treat culture. And that's what I benchmark against.
Okay. So when you look at that industry, kind of the change, you're benchmarking yourself against a number of different industries. You talked about Dutch Brothers and the whole coffee industry is rapidly changing, right? A lot of disintermediation there. How do you, in your role, kind of respond to some of the changes, right? Whether it's for how the loyalty program operates or changes in what the customers are looking for. How are you positioning your organization to respond to kind of the changing, habits in the industry?
Sure. I mean, for a lot of people, the first interaction they have with Nothing Bundt Cakes is with a large cake. And because we're a celebration business, I mean, that's how we were founded. And so, a lot of people will turn to us for the Mother's Day cake, the family birthday cake, that type of thing. And so we have three types of cakes basically, right? We have little bite ones we call buntinis. We have
Okay.
a personal size cake, which is a 2 serving cake. And then we have larger cakes where you have 8 inch, 10 inch, and tiered cakes. So we have a very slim offering, but again, that makes us really focus on being really excellent at what we do. So when it comes to changing, though, I mean, this is why I'm looking at self-treat because the average cost of our buntlet across our chain is $6 and change. And so I don't know the last time you went to Starbucks, but last time I went, I got an iced chai latte and it was an $8 drink. And so like my best performing email that I've ever sent out was something along the lines, like with a subject line that said, last more than 5 sips, something like that, because, you can get a $6 cake or a $6 drink and, it's going to last you longer. But I think that's, we watch the trends a lot and self-treat is really something that we follow because that's where, I mean, we do an incredible business in buntlets. And it's because we have 12 core flavors that you'll always find in our case. But then we also do pop-up flavors, which go for 2 weeks. And then we also do seasonal flavors, which run for 6. And so our best selling buntlets, the stuff that really goes viral and goes like wide on social. We did a Dubai chocolate in the last couple months, and that went crazy. We did Biscoff in the fall that went absolutely bananas. And so we're really good, you know what I mean, at kind of riding the trends in terms of like flavors and stuff like that. And the other thing that's changing for us, right, is that we are really attracting a younger customer, which again, if you walked into a Nothing Bundt Cakes, at 2 o'clock on a Thursday, you might think that our customer base was really old. But, you come after school and, we attract a lot of younger folks. Like we're really seeing the 18 to 25 demo really start to
Okay.
come up for us. And again, I think it's that self-treat culture.
Okay. Customer loyalty. You've been in the industry for a while. We get the pleasure of speaking with people who are in the industry. We love to understand, how they define customer loyalty, what it means to them, what it means to the organization. Someone with your deep background, what does customer loyalty mean to you and to Nothing Bundt Cakes?
For us, it's really about brand love, to be honest. And, there's a lot of businesses out there, like, okay, let's just call Sears because they really don't exist anymore. So I can pick on them all I want to. If you were in their loyalty program, would you, and, you're shopping for a refrigerator, would love really be something that you would apply to Sears? Probably not. And I mean, unless you're a dude who loves Craftsman tools and, so no slam there. But for us, it's really brand love. And because if you love the brand, you'll choose the brand. And we really talk about 2 things. We call it the double H, which is hospitality and high quality product. And those are really kind of our foundations. And because there's so many options out there, again, I mean, you could go to Crumble and you can get, 3 cookies for $12 or, whatever they charge for it, or hopefully you'll make an extra stop, to us, because again, the problem that we have, our biggest problem is national awareness. And when we look at that, we have, a lower score than we would certainly want. And so for brand loyalty for us, it's about how do I turn the data that I have as the program owner into personalized, relevant communications that make you think of us first when you are either celebrating or looking to self-treat.
That makes perfect sense. You talk about hospitality.
Yeah.
We interview a number of restaurants, QSR, fast casual. Hospitality is a big discussion point, and but with delivery now, they
Mhm.
can impact hospitality. So there's just questions been asked quite often. Where does hospitality start? Does it start in the parking lot? You come in and see a dirty parking lot? Yeah, I'm kind of turned off. Does it start with someone at the front desk or at the front of the store acknowledging that person? Hospitality, you mentioned very important to Nothing Bundt Cakes. Where does it start?
I mean, hospitality, I think honestly starts even from my end, right? With email and text messages and all that kind of stuff. And, speaking to a guest in a way that's very on brand for us. And how we describe our communication style is like with a wink. And, the word bunt certainly lends itself to a lot of puns. And if you ever saw My Big Fat Greek Wedding, if you want to pronounce it bunt, again, it's a funny word, and we acknowledge it, right? And again, if you would like a t-shirt that says I like big bunts and I cannot lie, I will hook you up, so let me know.
There you
But
go.
yeah, but for us, no, I mean, hospitality really, it's everything that we stand for, and it's how our bakeries look. We have three concepts out there, and we're constantly testing and refining because we had an older concept that was really kind of based on what we call grandma's kitchen, with like the swag curtains and the saloon doors and all that kind of stuff. And it really was meant to be evocative of, your childhood memories. And of course, as the brand has evolved, we have evolved the way that our bakeries look, and then we're modern and all that kind of stuff. But when you walk into one of our bakeries, first of all, we absolutely want a clean bakery because it's a food business. And I mean, if you see anything that's dirty, I think, again, we eat with our eyes first, and so it's got to look great. But we're serious about the hospitality aspect, and we don't actually call our front desk staff cashiers or anything. We call them joy creators. And that is the mindset that we want them to embody when a guest walks through the door, and make their experience like just extremely positive. I mean, through all aspects of it.
You've talked about the customer loyalty program. You developed it, you're redoing it, adding some functionality, features. Many brands struggle with prioritization of the program internally, right? They struggle a little bit of making sure that the CFO understands it, the auditors understand it, but also the frontline employees, the marketing team. What's the key to having a program that's prioritized within an organization? How do you go about doing that?
Sure. Well, let me back up a little bit because when I started in November of 2024, I inherited an existing program called Bundt Rewards. And it was really a byproduct of launching an app. And so we're owned by private equity. And when they came in, one of the gaps that they saw in our offerings was that we didn't have an app. So we launched an app, and it came with loyalty capabilities. So the folks that were here created a loyalty program called Bundt Rewards, and it launched alongside the app. And so when I was hired on, we had just gone through our national pilot, everybody had it. And I was hired, again, to bring us up to best in class. And so renamed it Buntastic Rewards, which is a lot more fun to say than Bundt Rewards. And we also, I will tell you, we launched a loyalty program. We went national in September of 2024, and nobody did anything with it. Like, we literally didn't have an onboarding series. We didn't even have offers. So we launched this loyalty program, and nobody did anything with it. So, here I come along, and I'm like, all right, I can fix this. And so we relaunched it as Buntastic Rewards in March of 2025, and it still was only app only. And I will tell you that, peers in the industry who saw that I had joined Nothing Bundt Cakes, they were like, why would you have an app only loyalty program? And I'm like, working on it. And so actually, it was only until just this January that we went multi-channel, and which sounds so crazy when you say it, because of course, the best in class programs out there are multi-channel. And so we're just approaching the 100-day mark, where we have, where you can actually check in a bakery, as well as earn points for your orders online and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the background, on loyalty is from our journey, from where we were to where we are. But I will tell you, it is absolutely an organizational priority because, right, loyalty is a tactic that fits under the CRM umbrella.
Yep.
And one thing that we're very focused on is increasing frequency, which falls squarely in my camp, and my responsibility as the retention person on the business.
Okay. You talked about when was the first program launched by chance?
The first program was piloted in May of 2024 and
Okay.
went national in September of
Okay.
that.
So when you look at the first program, what were some opportunities to improve it? Maybe some things that you would like to improve. Was it getting to multi-channel? Was it using it more to create awareness, making it better and more functional than just app only? What were some of the opportunities you saw for the recent relaunch?
Sure. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our customer base. Half of our customer base is over 45 and half is under 45. And so any business that has an exact split, a 50-50 split of their customers, it's always challenging, right? And because, I think about that older customer who was very uncomfortable with the app. And I used my mother as the example. And it's always like, my mother, Captain Carol. I'm like, can Captain Carol work this? Can Captain Carol place an order, through an app? Captain Carol cannot call an Uber. So, that is true. So, I was always struggling to figure out, okay, how can I make this good for my older guest? As part of the first program, the first wave of it, you had to attach a credit card to be able to earn points. And again, with so many people very fearful about having their data out in the public, certainly giving a credit card, to a company that they would perceive as I think the best one I heard was in bakery from an older gentleman, and he said, "If Target can't keep my data safe, how can I trust you?" Fair point, right? And so, a couple of things that I wanted to change immediately was really work on the value proposition and increase more rewards. We had a little bit too high of an earning chart, so it was really tough to get to a reward right off the bat. And then
Yeah.
we also gave, 500 points as a welcome gift. And if you've been around loyalty for a long time, as much as we all love our own currencies, you really shouldn't lead with your currency because customers don't know what that means yet, and you don't know does 500 points mean I have something free? Does 500 points mean I'm, like 800 years away from a reward? You don't know. And so, we changed up the reward structure. And then, of course, we laid in like a full CRM program behind it. And so, now we look at things like, when are what's a new customer look like? What's the next best step? When do you become lapsed? When are you, when are we in win back situation? That type of thing, like looking for my one and dones, like who maybe only order, like one cake a year. And it's all that kind of stuff, so we're still in build mode. Absolutely. But taking us to multi-channel 100 days ago has really been an astounding game changer for us. And we have seen our percentage of sales attached to members we're almost at 25%. And again, we are at 100 days for the program. So it's been well received, certainly by by our field teams and
Yeah.
really received by customers.
One of the challenges when you relaunch a program, you said you were not struggle for awareness, but you want to create more awareness of the Nothing Bundt Cakes holistically. But relaunching a program is a big challenge, right? Making sure they understand the program, especially in this era of not want to say devaluation of programs, right? But of changing the program, right? That may not necessarily be aligned with the brand and with the customers. How do you communicate the relaunch of the program and all the very interesting things that you're doing to add value in this
Yeah.
instance, going from a focused app-based program to more holistically engaging that customer? How do you communicate that to the
Yeah.
customers?
Well, I'll tell you, the number one text of the last 12 months was the one that we sent out when we relaunched Buntastic Rewards, and we used the word zhuzhed. And I had to fight for it, like weirdly, because people are like, no one knows what that means. I'm like, yes, they do. So it says, Buntastic Rewards has, been zhuzhed up, and yeah, number one most open text. So that was awesome. So off to a good start there. But I mean, even, yesterday I had a meeting with my ops team who took me through still there's friction points out there. There's still misunderstanding, not only from our joy creators, but also customers. And, one thing that we took away was the ability to upload a receipt. And we still have people who believe they can do it. So they're really mad when they can't. And then, we still have, our joy creators who are telling people, oh, just go ahead and upload a receipt. So I
Right.
think it's going to be a constant education. And, even this has been the topic of this week, which is how do we eliminate friction points? How do we do a better job at education? Because, we launched the program with a full slate of, learning and development materials. And but again, we are a food business, and the turnover rate is pretty high. And so, how do we ensure that we can keep getting our teams, trained and up to date, and really well spoken about the program? Because I mean, I think when we talked about hospitality earlier, you get people who are, I get a 16-year-old who works 2 shifts a week, 4 hours at a pop. And how do I make sure, what I mean, that they're educated on exactly what the program is? So yeah, so I mean, it's a constant challenge. I mean, I think that we will be in that cycle of keep trying to educate customers constantly. And so if you're subscribed to our emails, we're adding a did you know section that'll start. You'll see that in about a week. So again, it's always a struggle to continue to improve. And but I mean, that's what makes the job interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about kind of the changes to the program, making sure that it resonates. A big topic right now, or a pressing topic, is value, right? The economic
Yes.
K-shaped recovery potentially.
Mhm.
What can you do from the customers? One of the things you mentioned as well is that moving that first redemption opportunity up
Yeah.
in the life cycle, which can be, as we know, very advantageous for the customer for the program. Well, how are you looking at value? Maybe some demographics can't afford as much as they have in the past. Maybe they're looking and you've got different sizes now. How do you look at value and bring that not only to the customer, but to the program as well?
Sure. I mean, you've been around as long as I have in this business. And, when we launched Blockbuster Rewards in the 90s, we were one of the first retail loyalty programs out there because at that time it was all just travel programs, right? The airlines, the hotels, and the car rental companies were the ones who had loyalty programs. And so I would say over like the last 10 years, the biggest sea change that I have seen is that loyalty programs have become ubiquitous, right? When your dry cleaner has a loyalty program, because they're on Aloha or Toast and they can enable that, very quickly, that's one thing. But it's about how to be a differentiator. And for us, again, what we're seeing is that people are no longer holding out their rewards. They are using them as fast as they earn them. And then the other thing that I'm seeing is that loyalty programs as a whole have become more part of people's weekly budgets than they were before, and so, just, I'll just choose Dunkin' Donuts just because I love Dunkin' Donuts. But, it used to be that people would hold out, right, and save their points for a dozen donuts. And now it is, you know what, Friday, I'm going to self treat. And so I have enough points either for, a free drink, you know what I mean? Or, an extra donut or something like that. And that's how we see our program being used as well, is that my lower point rewards where you're
Yeah.
either getting BOGO or a free cake, a free buntlet, those are the ones that are my biggest redemptions, hands down.
Excellent. And you think that's kind of that's situationally kind of relevant, just with the challenges right now. In some groups, they want that redemption. Even you said if it's just a buntlet or 50 cents off, it makes them feel like the brand's hearing them. It's resonant with them. Is that what you think is kind of driving that?
I do, and and we're careful about how we communicate out as well, because every time we do a lot of bonuses. We do a bonus almost every single week, and because we have fun with like made up holidays, like National Strawberry Day. So I'll give you like 100-point bonus to come in and buy any size of our strawberry cake, and so there's fun there. But what I'll do too, right, is if I'm giving you, so like we're coming up on Mother's Day, and we did a 600-point pre-order bonus if you ordered your cake 3 weeks out. And what I will always tell you is that 600 points is equivalent to a free buntlet. And so in every communication, I am always drawing that parallel between where our rewards start and how fast you can get there. And so
Right.
that's important to me because again, it's like when you get even Starbucks, right? I mean, I'm in their program, and you'll get this whole thing where it'll say, hey, if you come in today you'll get 25 extra stars. And I don't know what that equates to. Is that just a pump of syrup? You know what I mean? Is that a baked good? I don't know, and so I'm always trying to draw that parallel so that you understand, how fast you can be at a reward redemption.
Yeah, that's very important too, especially if you're making changes, right? Because that whole loss aversion theory, right? If people think you're taking something away from them,
Right.
they react differently when you're giving them something. So reinforcing the value of the program is very important. Just like the banks or Delta at the end of the year, they send you that nice little video. You did X, Y, and Z, but
Mhm.
it really shows the kind of that you understand that customer, right? And that that the whole idea of that reinforcing program value continuously is something that the great programs do, as you know.
Yeah.
When you look at AI, how are you looking at AI internally? Is your organization using it? What do you think's the opportunity for artificial intelligence in customer loyalty, customer experience, customer engagement?
I mean, AI is the buzzword. I mean, if we were doing bingo, you and I would have just gotten a space. But so we're with Zeta as our ESP, and also our CDP.
Yep.
And one of the reasons why we like Zeta a lot is because they have AI capabilities. And I'll tell you, we are not taking full advantage of what they have because we're still fledgling, right, in terms of growing our CRM capabilities and our loyalty program. And but I would say right now, I mean, we have an agentic relationship, and we look at AI for what I would consider kind of some of the table stake stuff. So right now, it's really about journey orchestration. It is about timing, right, and channel choice. I mean, because Mark opens emails at 6 a.m., Jen looks at texts at 1, and so how do we get that message to each of the folks in the channel of choice as well as at the best time, for that to be done. So we're still early in it. I mean, we see a lot of promise to where we can go with it. I mean, I would love to have a fully, orchestrated CRM journeys, based, forget business rules, you know what I mean? Let's talk about what AI says should be happening, right? In terms of next best step or what product should be featured in your email versus mine. I mean, I'm down for it. And I think it's going to be really fun to see where it goes. But, again, as all things, right, we just got to be careful not to cross that big brothery line.
You're
And,
right.
I mean, I had one of those instances at GameStop, and I was like proud because you got to know where the line is, so when you cross it.
That's my wife always tells me, but I don't seem to. Yeah, I don't always listen, but I'm trying. What's the next big thing that you think is going to impact customer loyalty, customer experience? Maybe even what is Nothing Bundt Cakes looking at for the
Yeah.
next big thing?
Next big thing in loyalty, boy, that's wide open, I think, because it's where people take their programs. And um, next big thing in loyalty. Honestly, I think it's going to turn into hyper personalization. I mean, we've been there, but when I talk about hyper personalization, I mean, I'm talking about truly knitting together all your data. And, like with Zeta, we get 2000 plus data signals. And so things that, I don't know about your eating habits, but things that I can, pick, from the data set there that'll just, make things even more interesting, I think. So yeah, I mean, look, AI is definitely, it's the thing that's happening right now. And I think just, we're along for the ride.
Well, excellent. When you look back at your program, you step back and
Yeah.
what are you most proud of? What are you most proud that you've accomplished? What are you most proud of that the program represents? What are you most proud of?
Yeah. I would say it's the embrace, right? The embrace of not only customers with our program and but also our bakery teams as well, and my organization as a whole. Our loyalty program was a strategic initiative for us. And so, I mean, it's great to come into an organization where your project is highly supported. And so I would tell you, I'm still in foundational mode, where, last year we got 32 CRM journeys built. We have another, 3 dozen on tap for this year. We're moving very fast on that one. And, I think anybody who has a loyalty playbook is probably following the same type of things. Like I haven't introduced tiers yet because I still want a year of data from our launch in January to kind of really see where we are. Because, kind of what you alluded to earlier, right? If I set my tiers wrong and then I have to walk it back, that's where you get so much customer dissatisfaction. And, you don't want to take something away. And I mean, we've all seen the programs out there that have not done a great job on that. So, yeah, so for me, it's really about data collection, to be honest. And, I want people to fill out their profiles because, the more I know about you, the better I can serve you. And, one of the unique things that we have, for instance, in our profile is we ask people for a special day. And is there a special day we can celebrate with you? And you would not believe the answers that we have gotten just from that question. And, there's things in there that you would expect, like, the day that someone became a grandparent, the day they got their MBA, the day that they, summited Mount Everest. I mean, it's amazing. I would say the best one in there was someone who wants to celebrate a special day is the day that they shotgunned a beer with Dave Grohl. And so that's in there, And so for us, I love the fact that we have that high level of trust where someone would trust us with information about their personal life. And, and we send you a note. It's not a sales communication or anything like that, but it's just an acknowledgement. And so I do love that we have that. And that's the kind of thing that I want to keep growing, is that relational aspect with our guests.
Jenn, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. It was great getting an update on Nothing Bundt Cakes, the new passion, the new approach, the new focus. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and appreciate the update.
Thank you. It has been a fantastic ride.
I also wanted to thank everyone else for taking the time to listen. It's great having you with us every Thursday. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and all the social media channels, and check back every Thursday for a new edition of our Leaders in Customer Loyalty podcast series, the Brand Stories Edition. Additional details and links are included below in the comments section. Until next Thursday, have a wonderful day.